Okay, people, so I'm just keeping it real here. This is like January, oh, sorry. It's February. Yeah, 11th or 12th, something like that. It's all snowy outside. Everybody's been snowed in for 3 days. All right. We're in War Room 1. Keeping it real, people. I've started to sort through all this stuff. That's why I'm showing you. Do you see? It's enough to drive you mad. Okay. This is full of originals. Do you see that? John's Court. Alright. This one here I'm starting to fill up. This is John's sister. We can pretty much say, people, that she started this whole process for her greed for money. She is the representation of what my daughter, Shimei, didn't want to be. In other words, you can see this woman here is young when she became a nurse. I mean, look at the hat, people. Nurses don't run around with hats like that anymore. Okay? And today, she's old and ugly. Right? And we know what she did to Uncle John. Right? So we know that Shimei wouldn't want to be young and pretty and become into a nurse and then become old and ugly. Right? To do the things that this woman has done to create all this shit. And this is the point of that. Okay? Because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be doing this shit. Her and her cohorts. Her friends that she works with. And because she's in the government as a nurse for 40 years or more, because that's when she was really, really young. Again, look at that hat, people. That's why she got away with it. Right? And if they're doing it to one, they're doing it to more, because they know how to do it. They don't follow the legislation, people. The legislation is written to prevent these things from happening, like what happened to Uncle John. But when you get seniority staff coming in and making their own rules and buying people off, maybe threatening to fire people, who knows what these people do, but they're doing something. So anyway, hold on a minute. Okay, so now I'm in War Room 2. Right? Okay. I'm gonna start sorting this shit out now, people. Like, seriously. It's enough to drive you mad. All Andrews stuff again. This is mostly all Andrews. You can see, it's all Andrews. Right, there's my motion to waive fees. So this is how I'm doing it. Alright. This is, see? Order to waive fees. That's what I went in for the third time. They don't even have a number there. So I have to go through this and list it down and do exactly what it was. Right? And because of my eyes, it all starts to look the same, people. It's very hard. Extremely hard. And then this one, this is the one on the day Shimei died. Shimei died on April 11, 2018, and I got that like a couple days later or whatever it was. I have a video on this, people. This is the sergeant that came to my house. and told me it didn't look good as they were carrying Shmei's body out in a freaking hammock. Right? He said he would take Uncle John's information and pass it to the right cop to do an investigation into this shit. But needless to say, that hasn't happened yet. I wonder why. This is an amended response to civil claim. I haven't heard from them yet. They'll be calling me soon, though, because they want documents, I think. Because, what do you call it? Oh, I don't even know what I was saying. Anyway. See, that one is July 20th, 2018. Oh. So first this one, and then this one. And I haven't heard, I think here this is where he's asking for the documents. See, they submitted some documents here, somewhere. I don't know what they did with them. He has a list. He put his on a separate piece of paper. He didn't fill in these little boxes. So, I'm going to put mine on a separate piece of paper. I guess all you have to do is just have the right form. This is the form. Right? When I read some of this stuff, I don't quite understand what it means, but anyway, it says see attached Schedule A, right? See Schedule A. And then, you see, they just add their own schedule in, and then they list everything down that way. That's all I have. Just maybe one other thing or something, not too much. This is my copy of, I'm thinking it's this, because it's so thin. Because I did, like I said, when I was ordered to do those 20 pages for Fraser Health, I just took it upon myself to, what do you call it? Alright. I just took it upon myself to do it anyway. And see, you can see it's kind of like almost the same in terms of height, thickness. So I'm assuming that's what that is. This is my original for CIBC. The problem that I had here, people, was when I was writing it, I was trying to... When I was writing it, just be quiet, I'm almost done. Oh my god, I just found more. When I was writing it, stay quiet. When I was writing it, just go back to bed for a minute. It's still like early. Why are you up? It's like 8 o'clock in the morning, 7:30 in the morning. Go to bed.
Okay. I'm fine in the middle o'clock in the morning.
Okay, so anyway, when I was writing this, when I was doing it, right? No, I thought about doing them together, but then I thought, no, maybe not, because I just feel like Fraser Health Authority was the instigator, was the one that caused the most harm, right? I think the bank just got greedy for money. It wasn't like they were conspiring like Fraser Health Authority staff was under their legislation in terms of the things that they weren't supposed to be doing, but they did. So I had to take legislation from two angles, right, in terms of how it would fit into a scenario, an action of events, right? And that's why initially I ended up just putting them into two separate lawsuits so that, people could see it at a more objective perspective from where they're standing in terms of CIBC Bank and Fraser Health Authority is over here, right? Because they're completely two different entities that don't normally intermix with each other. But if you're getting into, extortion and money laundering and just, all those other things that go on when it's related to money, credit cards and accessing people's, credit history and just, whatever people do. Right? You know, you can develop a system, right? And that's why it was easy for Uncle John to get into that trap, because the system was already there. Even though the legislation has rules written in it where it's supposed to prevent things from happening, it doesn't do that, people, because there's immunity laws. And then you get people coming in like Andrew the Dragon that, you know, just don't make any sense, but they win because of ultimately the beehive mentality that brings in that immunity law on a just everybody knows you can do what you want and you'll never get caught because of immunity laws. So do what you want, right? That's, you know, basically the mentality. And so anyway, as I was writing this stuff, you know, I was getting near the end where I was coming up to my statute of limitation, because they only allow you 2 years to do these things. And as I was writing, I was trying to separate the two on paper as well as in my own mind. So I would copy and paste, and so that the information that Fraser Health Authority was getting in terms of that lawyer, judge, because I wrote it more for the judge than I did for the lawyers. Although I had the lawyers in mind, because I wanted the lawyers to know what they were representing in terms of the employees. Thinking that lawyers have morality, I guess you could say. Right? But lawyers don't, you know, because they separate themselves from the drama around it, and they just do a job like, you know, people are very good at just becoming psychopaths and cutting themselves off from the human misery that they're, you know, representing in terms of like, no, we didn't do it. You know, don't want to investigate, don't want to find the truth, don't want to speak out against it, just want to stand there and say, no, we didn't do it. So, because I didn't have enough time to go back and edit what I was doing, and I pretty much had to kind of stop it where I was at in that process, when I actually probably needed another 2 or 3 more months just to clean it up myself, in terms of where CIBC Bank was getting enough information in regards to the statement of facts, right? And so was Fraser Health Authority, and it would have been more tailored to the individual corporations and what their employees were doing. But there still had to be enough information in there as to what the other corporation was doing in order for their corporation to understand what their employees were doing. Because one couldn't have done what one did without the other. I mean, that ultimately remains the same, right? So that's why I just kind of want to get it over with and bring them together and let them work it out in court for themselves as to who's responsible. And I'll just stand back and wait and see who accepts the more responsibility, because they have to both take some responsibility for what they've done to Uncle John and his family. Right? In regards to Shimei, and when we get it to court with Shimei, if there was any illegal money being exchanged through the back door of the emergency room in a suitcase, and no bank was involved, well, then I guess the bank is in a pretty good state. But if money was being exchanged through bank accounts as my daughter's body was being embalmed after the fact of either two things happened, people. Her organs were liquefied, because that's the only way they can embalm people, is to either take out the organs or liquefy them. And if they're going to take out the organs, what did they do with them? They didn't incinerate them, people. Okay? That's a whole different ball game. Right? And when it goes to court, obviously nobody's going to want to talk about it, right? And Andrew the Dragon will come in with his funky case law. And if the bank is involved, it will just be hiding out in a corner somewhere, hoping not to get caught. If the money came in in a suitcase, well, you know, then, like, think about it. Think about it, people. So, what I'm trying to say is, when I wrote these things, this one, Fraser Health Authority, is a little thicker. We know why. I didn't have the extra 2 to 3 months to clean it up a bit in terms of where in some areas I was repetitive in terms of the timeline. But as I was being repetitive, I was also adding in new information. At one point, and I've mentioned this in other videos in the past, it started to feel like I was writing a mystery novel. And as I was going through paperwork, I was coming across clues, right? Which in the end ultimately is evidence. Here's for example, and I'll end it on this note. Back in the day, and I really want to challenge this one because I know why they did it. Back in the day, anytime, well, not anytime, but most times, right? If a card went out, you know, bank card or whatever, and you had to go to the bank and get a new card, right? What do you call it? You know, they make you sign a piece of paper. I would ask for a copy of that paper to show the transaction that I did with that bank card for my own records, not even thinking about it. And then after Uncle John was gone, right, and things got funky, and they kicked me out of my card that I had with him, and they did it through a teller, and it took him 3 times to do it with the same teller, and I have proof of that because I have the signature of the teller that did it, right? The last time I went to go exchange my card, which was just a month ago, and I asked them to give me a copy of that transaction, and they refused to do it. And then I had to ask for the management to come, and then the management said, oh, well, just give her a generic one, but nothing with signatures on it. So they have my account flagged at CIBC Bank in terms of watch this customer because she's a troublemaker. Don't give her any photocopies of anything because it might come back and bite us in the ass. So that's something to think about, people, right? At some point, I'll come across those papers and maybe I'll show you to explain so that you can see it better for your, you know, in terms of what I'm trying to say here. So anyway, I brought it down to 20 pages, right? Initially, it was, I don't know. It was a lot of writing, took a long time, 2 separate ones. Brought it down to 20, and then with this, when it went into that freaking other stuff, it went down to 7.5. Then it went down to 3. So, okay, people. What's this? So, list of documents. See, I already did something. I didn't do them all, though. It looks like I filed something here. So, this is why I'm going to write stuff down, because I don't know. See, remember I told you I gave this stuff to him, to the lawyer at the, for CIBC Bank? Well, I guess I filed something, people. I don't know. Looks like I filed something here. It was January of last year, so it's been 11 months since I've done this.